Here's Nick Kelly.
We finally got the sponsor that everybody wants. He's Nick Kelly. He's the head of U.S. marketing at Anheuser-Busch InBev. We'll talk about the relationship there in a minute. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Appreciate having me.
Well, you've got the job that everybody wants, because not only is it sipping beer during the day, but it's order taking with all of these people that want the tremendous legacy that Tony Pantoro and others have created, deployed over the sports space as well. Talk a little bit about your business and what you do.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're in a unique position because we're one of the few products in sports marketing that you can actually enjoy at a sporting event. You know, I think that puts us in a unique position to not only activate at all the arenas and stadiums across the country, but on a national level from a broadcast perspective, social and digital space. It's a unique opportunity for us to really connect our brands with consumers at the highs and the lows. You know, at the highs when they're celebrating championships or spending time with friends and family, to the lows of, it was a disappointing loss or, a record-breaking moment that was not in the positive light. Your team goes winless. Your team is beaten Game 7. We're there for the good and the bad. So it's one of the very unique positions we're lucky to play, but it's also a lot of pressure because I think it's a competitive space and you want to be there for on the high side, and on the other side, on the low side too, is give just as much attention to those partners as well.
Well, and I've seen in my day a lot of creative names that people use for titles from corporate people. I must say, VP of Partnership, Beer Culture and Community takes the cake. Yeah. Describe the business from your perspective, therefore.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a unique title because I oversee all the partnerships in the U.S. that you would imagine, which are traditional sports, music, entertainment, but I also have all the experiences that are associated with our company as a beer culture. So it's the brewery tours, it's the Clydesdales, it's the licensing division that also it connects our consumers. So anything that we connect our brands with the consumer, have it be an event or a product that isn't, I basically oversee connecting consumers with everything but selling beer. So.
Well, it's brand development and it's brand enhancement, so it makes a lot of sense, other than people can give you a little bit of grief about beer culture, which is a good time.
It's fun, though, because the reality is that our goal is to make beer approachable and at all these fun events, and we don't take it too seriously and too sophisticated, and we have a huge portfolio of products, so it's just that we can find the right product for any occasion.
So is it in the public domain? So if I wanted to change from chairman of my company to secretary of beer culture, would you push back?
I wouldn't push back. I mean, I think that the thing for us is I think I'm the only person in the world who has this title, so it makes it a little bit more unique. But at the same time, if it became a thing, I'd be happy with it. So.
Well, but it is unique because of your history in the sports space too. So talk about for a second before we get into the CSR activities. You guys, and again, Tony, who's been in my book and an icon, set the tone. It was. Sports sponsorships have been changed because of how AB involved and changed it. So talk about kind of your, as a trustee of the brand that has been nurtured for so many years.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we have a legacy. It began in the early 80s that we use sports as a vehicle to drive awareness of, an affinity towards Budweiser, but then it helped launch and propel brands like Bud Light. We basically used the MLB and NFL and NBA and everything else to drive awareness and sampling of Bud Light in the 80s and 90s, and it was really one of the biggest growth vehicles for Bud Light. So, taking that and the elements and tools they use from traditional awareness assets and kind of evolving them as technology and the space evolves to do the same thing with new brands. So Bud and Bud Light will still always be in those locations, but we're leveraging it for growth brands now like Michelob Ultra. We're using it for our local craft brands, and those vehicles that are in place, it's our job now to continue to find new ways to leverage those partnerships.
And then we'll get into CSR, the activation and the brainstorming, the Budweiser frogs. Everybody has a memory of Bud commercials through Super Bowls and beyond. Now the Knights. How's that all developed? I know the ad agencies come to you with a concept, and then you got to make sure the message sustains as well. Talk us through that process.
Look, I mean, we have an extremely collaborative process. I mean, it's teams of media buyers, obviously brand VPs, our CMO, insights. Obviously, there's some regional intelligence, and then our clear portfolio of agencies. And it's everything from our social agency, our traditional creative agency, and everybody plays a role in the process. But it started, June, July. It isn't one of those things that we start in Q4 and roll into Super Bowl. 6 months out, 7 months out, we're having these conversations. We're testing concepts. But the bigger thing we always do is how does this set me up for success for all of the year? It's not just a flash in the pan. And that's the more challenging part is everybody can come up with fun ideas that are going to win the Super Bowl, but how does it help you win the entire year?
And when you say win the entire year, I assume it used to be defined as volume of beer sales. And now I assume also there is this doing great by doing good permutation, and also the involvement of social awareness, social responsibility. Tell me how that's all morphed.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think we're starting to use our vehicles. If you look like what we did with Super Bowl last year, Budweiser ran literally a renewable energy spot about wind energy, and they had a Clydesdales drawn carriage with a Dalmatian on it whose face was blowing in the wind, and then all of a sudden when you zoomed out, it could have been any Budweiser commercial, and it shows a big wind farm, and it pushes our sustainability message of our goal to be completely run off renewable energy by 2026. So the goal for us is that we use these vehicles to drive that message because we're serious about it, and the broadest awareness messages we can get are still in our sports and broadcast partnerships.
Well, and let's put in perspective, a 30-second ad today is $5 million. I don't remember what the number was in 2001, but the ad that everybody in the industry and out remembers is that 30-second ad after the 2001, the 9/11 Super Bowl, and what that did for America that people may remember bigger than the game itself. So that is one of those things that you normally try to aspire to, I guess, when you create these ads.
But I mean, look, even from like just a typical CSR stuff to doing the right thing, I think that, we saw two things with Budweiser this year. One is they really got behind the Jackie Robinson 100th anniversary and the movement there, because I think that the big piece is there's still a whole generation of people who don't understand the role that Jackie Robinson played for baseball and just, unifying the league. The second one is in the sports, again, is taking a stand and getting behind women's soccer. For us was that, everybody watches the World Cup every year for women. The U.S. is the best by far. And then when they come back here, they're going back to regular jobs, but there is a league out there that we want to help elevate. And while it's not a typical corporate responsibility thing, we as the leader in sports need to play a role in helping bring other partners in. And more than anything else is treating them the same way we treat other athletes.
And so the Good Sport program, describe that a little bit, too, and how it's resonated across several leagues.
Yeah, the Good Sport program for us is our way of responsible drinking in venues. I think that years ago there was a huge epidemic in the 80s and 90s with drunk driving, and I think that it continues to show better trends year after year because of a lot of different reasons. But the one thing we want to do from a role standpoint at a live sporting event was to find designated drivers to those who did show up and actually enjoy some of our products, is that they had a safe way to get home. And it's not an incentive-based thing, but it's very much hey, we'll give you, if you sign up and promise to be the designated driver, the good sport of the game, get a free water, get a free Diet Pepsi, whatever it may be, but you're promising us that you will be a safe ride home for you and your friends. And that has been good for us, and it's an important role. We don't want a bunch of people showing up at these sporting events, over-consuming, and then all of a sudden driving home. Or even just, it's still irresponsible to have more than one or two drinks anyway and drive as it is. So even if you feel like you're fine, it's important for us to play that role, because not for our partnerships and not for, that one individual, but more for the community. If we're providing this, we need to make sure we also provide an alternative to driving home.
The sponsorship metrics aren't easy, but there is a way to analyze them, beer sales and the like, awareness and avidity and all of that. The social good measurement, a little tougher, but the campaigns you take on also are not easy to measure. Right. You can't talk about reduction of drunk driving in any measurable way. Is it all anecdotal? Is it all intuitive? Do you feel good about these programs? How do you measure success?
Yeah, look, I think it's always a moving target, because for us right now, it was, decades ago or even a decade ago, and it continues to be a problem, is always drunk driving. And while the numbers go down, it's not necessarily because we're doing a better job. We like to believe we are. But it's because the invention of Uber and Lyft and all these other things. There's a lot more alternatives out there today, especially outside of big metropolitan areas, so you don't have to drive. So those things in and of themselves, those innovations have made the consumption of alcohol and getting home a lot easier and more convenient. So it's hard to put an ROI on it, but I think for us is that while the numbers go down, until it's at a zero, it's still not 100% there. So.
As the industry leader, and really you are the unquestionable industry leader, not only dollar volume, but history and legacy, as we said earlier, how do you create a template for people to understand that evaluate the doing good versus the ROI and in some ways bringing it together?
Yeah, I mean, on our side too, we have an internal standard that a certain percentage of our total marketing package is going to go towards responsible drinking. So it's not negotiable. It's not like, hey, we're getting a great ROI on this Bud Light commercial, so let's take from there and put it in there. It's because it's the right thing to do. I think the other part is, from our side, is that every year Budweiser's got some sort of responsibility message. Dating back to, 5 or 6 years ago, they did the whole thing about getting a safe ride home, home, and they used their iconic Dalmatian to show, like, hey, you want to make home so you can see your dog in the morning. So, like, stay the night at a friend's house or get a safe ride, all the way up to what we're doing every year, from as small as being at the bars and giving. Like, we buy over New Year's, Thanksgiving, Christmas. We will pay to tow your car back to your house and give you a safe ride home. Like, it's the right thing to do. The hardest thing for us is we have to invest marketing dollars for people to know those services are available. Because if they don't, it's nice for us to say that they are, but if we're not promoting them, we're not doing our part.
And so, as you develop future legacies that will transcend any one particular issue, and you look ahead, how is the sports sponsorship world generally changing?
And it's changing daily, and I think that especially in general, because there's so many new sports. If you would have looked at this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we really started investing heavily behind sports, it was us and one other person that were really going head to head in everything, and you were fighting over basically 4 major properties. Now, with the growth of esports, the growth of college football, the growth of rugby, lacrosse, there is so many more places now to spend your money, and also more than anything else to activate. And you're hitting different types of consumers and fans across the board. So it's not as easy as saying, all right, I've got 4 leagues and I have 30 teams per league, and that's my focus. It's very regionally led now, and it's very much like if you said you're all in on baseball, there's certain markets where baseball, even if it has a team, baseball is the 6th most important thing there, and the college football team is number 1. So getting those insights has become more and more challenging, and then the fragment of just like the properties in the marketplace.
And another industry leader question. So as you create the standard and know that all of these programs are requesting Anheuser-Busch dollars either for signage or for whatever, it's just let's write the check.
Right.
It's got to be a signal that gone are the days where my CEO is going to play with yours and we're going to cut some kind of anecdotal deal.
Yeah. Look, and that's it. A lot of the relationship-based stuff, I wouldn't say is gone, but it doesn't bring as much value anymore, because the sophistication behind what is in the sponsorship space today versus what was here even a year ago, 5 years ago, is much deeper. And the other part is more people are more keen to how this works on the traditional business side of every company. So they're looking for a real ROI. They're not looking for they're showing up at a baseball game, sitting behind home plate and seeing their sign and like, this works. Like, it doesn't work that way anymore.
How did your work at and with NASCAR help you get a perspective as you came over here?
Man, I can't tell you a single place if you're going to work on the brand side where you'll ever deal with more brands. Like, it's the one place you're going to deal with. There's thousands of brands in the sport of NASCAR. They all have a different reason for being there and different objectives. So to see the different reasons why people invest in sports, and especially a sport like NASCAR, was like probably the best way to kind of really jumpstart my career in sports marketing. And
the irony is that now you go from an industry where you're driving to champion responsible driving.
Yeah, look, I think it's the one thing that's like the biggest oxymoron ever is, like, I always internally we have this conversation. It's like, NASCAR race cars are going 180, 200 miles an hour, and they're like, do you really want to put a beer logo on top of that car? Yeah. So we actually do. We spend a lot of time in that sport, at least investing behind, like, responsible drinking. Because, like, look, we're championing you as a fan of NASCAR. I'm not championing, like, put a bud in your car while you're watching this guy. So it's a tough balance to strike.
So, Randy Moss, Brian Leftwich, Chad Pennington, Nick Kelly, the 4 most influential guys in Marshall sports history?
No, not at all. I think that I was fortunate enough to go to a university that was good at football at the time, and they're still good now. But I think that they really, from '96 on, they had a run. It was, to your point, Marshall, Randy Moss, Chad Pennington, Leftwich, Ahmad Bradshaw. Like, we have a good run. I think that we also just have it's a good community, and it helped me too. Though, is that we're in a space now is that. It's a small town, it's a small college town, and our core consumer that drinks at the highest volume of our product is in those small towns. So it helps me in my job day to day.
Ladies and gentlemen, a thundering herd prepares him to maximize demographic targeting at the job that he loves. Nick, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Really